Parvati. Parvati is the wife of Shiva, and she is regarded as a representation of Shakti, meaning energy, power, and potency. Parvati's other names include Durga, Uma, Lalita, Gauri, Shivagami, Aparna, and many more. Parvata is one of the Sanskrit words for mountain. Parvati translates into she of the mountains and refers to Parvati being born as the daughter of Himavat, the lord of mountains. Parvati's parents are Himavat, personification of Himalayas, and the Apsara, Mena. Parvati is said to be the second wife of Shiva. Parvati is also known as Dakshayini, the first wife. Narada's kin are also referred to as Parvata, discussed in the chapter Narada. Vata means movement and is also the name of Vayu, who is the lord of wind. Thus, Parvati, Parvata, controls many functions of the human body compatible to Shiva and is therefore portrayed as his wife. As Shiva represents the masculine or manliness, Parvati represents the feminine with reference to the human body. Lymphatic system of the brain is the same for males and females. Hence, Parvati also resides at Kailash, thalamus, along with her husband. Shiva, every human's gender is determined from 2 chromosomes, one each from the mother's and father's sex cell. Hence, both Shiva and Parvati are always held together at all places in Puranic stories. Parvati was known as Dakshayini in her previous life. She was the daughter of Daksha, son of Brahma. Daksha performed rigorous tapasya to obtain a boon from Shiva. Pleased with his penance, Shiva granted him many boons, including a special boon that Parvati herself would be his daughter. Parvati was ordained to take a human birth and return later to Shiva at Mount Kailasa. Parvati came down to earth and was found as a baby near a tank full of lotuses. King Daksha saw this child near the lotus pond, took her home, and brought her up as his own daughter. She was known as Dakshayini. As time passed, she cultivated extreme devotion for Shiva and expressed a resolution to marry only Shiva. Daksha, the son of Brahma, is the personification of a female sex cell which contains only XX chromosomes. This chromosome can create a female child only when it merges with the X chromosome of a male. Thus, Daksha receives a boon to beget Parvati, X chromosome, as his daughter. Daksha picks up Parvati, named her Dakshayini, near a lotus pond, which refers to the ovary. Lotus is also known as Padmam, which refers to Lakshmi. Being a female, Parvati will always look forward to meeting and marrying Shiva, who is a symbol of manliness, let alone her husband from an earlier life. This brings in the relationship between the thalamus of the brain and the procreative organs in puberty. Meanwhile, Shiva, as a hunter in a forest, met Dakshayini in person and assured her that he would marry her. On hearing news of their courtship, her parents planned to celebrate the marriage in a grand and befitting manner. But Shiva, instead of undergoing the prescribed ceremonies, entered the wedding hall and carried away Dakshayini in the presence of Daksha and the other devas who had assembled there to grace the occasion. Shiva's action infuriated Daksha, and forgetting all that Shiva had done for him, Daksha began abusing Shiva, and thus discord developed between the two. The stories explain the culmination of a series of physiological and anatomical developments in the female body on attainment of puberty. Shiva, being the blood and pituitary gland of the human body, plays a big role in triggering these developments. And the process does not require anybody's permission, especially Daksha's. Hormones secreted at the pituitary and pineal glands accelerate the process of development. The Puranas build up stories of enmity between Daksha and Shiva in a dramatic way so that Daksha can never reconcile with Shiva. Daksha can never become a male sex cell to contain the XY chromosome, since Daksha was made to be a female sex cell to have the XX chromosome only. The story continues. According to Puranic stories, Daksha had 27 daughters, whom he gave in marriage to Chandra, moon god, who is one of the Navagrahas. These daughters are called nakshatras. Na plus shatra, where part of their names resembles kshatriyas, a class of varna. Kshatriyas are considered red blood cells. Is there any connection between each of 27 nakshatras and blood cells? Do these nakshatras represent the hormone secretions in the blood during each day of the menstrual cycle? If so, what are the qualities of each nakshatra hormone, since each day is represented by different nakshatras? There are 28 nakshatras, 27 plus 1 Abhijit, and intercalary nakshatra, and each one of them represents each day of the female menstrual cycle. Normally, the cycle is about 29.5 days. The balance 2.5 days, 29.5 to 27, is split between the day of menstruation and ovulation. Puranic stories refer to the day of menstruation as new moon day, Amavasya, and the day of ovulation as full moon day, Paurnami. Chandra, instead of loving all the 27 wives equally, developed an intense partiality towards one wife called Rohini. Rohini is one of the nakshatras. The other wives complained to their father Daksha about being neglected. Daksha, on hearing this complaint, cursed Chandra that he would be deprived of his kalas, referring to Chandra's brightness. Kala means time, and Shiva is also known as Mahakala. Shiva is also the personification of human blood. The deprivation of kalas, brightness, refers to the days of menstruation when blood is discharged. Daksha's 27 daughters represent the 27 days in the menstrual cycle. These 27 days come into existence only when a female child comes of age and attains puberty. Till then, only one wife, Rohini, will be loved by Chandra, who can be considered as a young female child. Thus, the remaining 26 wives will come into existence or be loved by their husband, Chandra, only when the female child attains puberty. Chandra, grieved and depressed over Daksha's curse, prayed to Shiva to be saved. Shiva, out of compassion, relieved him partially from the curse and saved him by wearing him on his forehead. Hence, he finds changes in the phases of the moon, gradual decrease of brightness during Krishna Paksha or the dark fortnight, and gradual increase during the Shukla Paksha or the bright fortnight. Shiva's actions further infuriated Daksha. Shiva, Pitta or Pittan, being the pituitary gland, makes it possible and initiates puberty. The pineal gland is also responsible for female procreative activities. New moon day is known as the first day of menstrual cycle, and the fortnight prior to that is called Krishna Paksha, dark fortnight. Full moon day is known as the day of ovulation, and the fortnight prior to that is called Shukla Paksha, bright fortnight. These changes are the outcome of the hormonal secretions for which Shiva, the glands in the thalamus area of the human brain, are responsible. This is why Shiva wears Chandra, crescent moon, on his forehead. The thalamus resembles the shape of a crescent moon. It is obvious that hatred and enmity has been created wantonly to substantiate and give meaning to these concepts in the Puranic stories. Brahma, body cells or somatic cells, had planned for a yagna, metabolic activity, and, as usual, geared up to offer the sacraments of the yagna to Shiva. Being the Lord, Shiva is the personification of human blood, of all yagnas. Invitations were sent to all devas, including Daksha. The whole host of devas assembled in the yagna hall. Shiva sent Nandi, his vehicle and personification of sexual stimulation, to attend the function as his representative. Daksha, who also attended the yagna, was so filled with envy and arrogance that he not only condemned Brahma for giving the sacrament to Shiva, but also went to the extent of blaspheming Shiva and treating his representative Nandi in the most contemptuous manner. Any metabolic activity in the human body takes place with the help of blood. It cannot neglect blood. The above story is a dramatized version of this. None of the devas assembled had the courage to protest the behavior of Daksha, but Nandi, not able to digest the words of Daksha, cursed Daksha that he would suffer in various ways, die a violent death, and have a goat's head in his next birth. He was also angry with the other devas for their cowardice in not confronting Daksha and cursed them to undergo torture and persecution at the hands of Asuras Surapadma, Simhamukha, and Taraka. They are identified in the chapter Durga and Kartikeyan. After cursing them all, Nandi left the hall in a rage. After the departure of Nandi, the great sage Dadichi Maharishi approached Daksha and advised him not to behave in that manner towards Shiva. But his advice fell on deaf ears. Thus, the yagna arranged by Brahma was interrupted and ended in confusion. Daksha decided to perform the yagna himself, for which he would neither invite Shiva nor to offer the sacrament to him. These are the preparatory scenes for a mega happening in a female human body. Medically, it is called menarche, meaning the first menstrual bleeding in females. It signals the onset of female puberty and the possibility of future fertility. It is time to recognize that a girl is moving into womanhood. Menarche should not be confused with regular ovulation and the capacity for conception. There may be several month interval between these two happenings depending upon individual physiology. Menarche is the first step to bring about physiological and anatomical changes in the female body. Pituitary hormones begin to stimulate the secretion of estrogen by the ovaries. Estrogen stimulates the growth of the uterus, height, breast, and widening of the pelvis. It stimulates the growth and vascularity of the endometrium, the lining of uterus. It is interesting to note that Parvati, the daughter of Apsara Mena, Apsaras are celestial dancers who represent body development. Menarche and Mena. Is there a connection? As per Merriam-Webster's dictionary, men or meno is a Greek root meaning month or moon. Arche means beginning, and thus Mena or Menarche means month or moon beginning, which indicates the onset of menstruation. The subspecies name of goat, Daksha's headgear is goat's head, is Capra aegregres hircus. Uterus is related to Hiranyagarbha. Does this hair have any connection to both? A picture of goat's face or sheep mukha resembles the diagram of uterus. Even today, many people sacrifice goats at temple rituals thinking that it will benefit them. They do not understand the meaning of goat sacrifice. Nandi's curse took effect and Daksha acquired a goat's head. A full-fledged female's reproductive system comes into existence. When menarche sets in, it is the confirmation of a gradual estrogen-induced growth of the uterus, especially the endometrium. An outflow tract from the uterus to the vagina through the cervix is opened. Let us look at the picture of the goat, its nose and mouth. Puranic stories use the goat's face, Agni Mukha, to explain the outflow duct being formed. A small deep line tract from the nose, uterus, of the goat is formed, but does not touch the mouth, vagina. Puranic stories also have used Simha Mukha, lion face, to explain the female reproductive organs, ovaries, fallopian tubes, uterus, and vagina. Both goat head and lion face, nose line will touch the mouth in lion's face, resemble the female reproductive organs. Nandi also cursed that the Devas would face torture at the hands of Asuras, Surapadma, Simhamukha, and Taraka. The term Devas is loosely translated from the Puranic stories to mean gods. In fact, it refers only to the sperm, DNA, and gene bases. There exist 330 million Devas compared to 310 million gene bases under modern medicine. The curse of Nandi is all about the treatment to be meted out to sperm cells when they enter the vaginal passage and travel through the uterus and fallopian tubes during intercourse. Sperms are aliens in the vaginal terrain, and a favorable atmosphere must be created for them to move in. Otherwise, all the sperms will die or be flushed out. This may also mean the union or yoga of gene bases of haploid cells on fertilization. Padma means lotus, and it is used to represent ovaries and follicles in Puranic stories. Sura or Asura does not mean demons, but means hormonal or fluid secretions at those parts and other concerned areas. Sura comes from the word surabhi, meaning secretion. Asura means non-secreting. A plus sura, where a is used for negation. A fight within Asura means making the secreting gland secrete. Taraka is the placenta that comes into existence on pregnancy. Daksha made elaborate arrangements for a grand yagna to compensate for the failed one at Kandal, in Haridwar, on the banks of the Ganga. All devas, gods, genes were invited. Shiva alone was left uninvited. Dakshayini heard the news about her father's grand yagna. Dakshayini, tempted by natural desire to attend the great function, went to Kandal, where the yagna was in process against her husband Shiva's wishes. Kandal, burning sensation, refers to the areas of female reproductive organs. Kandal, glory lily, gloriosa superba, Kalihari, is normally known to be a warm sexual stimulation of feeling. Varuna is known as Kandalon. Agave americana or agave vivipara or agave cantala or agave veracruz or agave vihiti or agave cisalana peru is known as Kantala plant. The plant is useful in the treatment of syphilis and gonorrhea. The place Kandal or Kandal in Haridwar, which is on the banks of the Ganga, resembles or sounds alike the forest Kandava of the Kuru dynasty, mentioned in Mahabharata. It was the habitat of Naga king Takshaka and his clan. Arjuna and Krishna cleared the forest to build Indraprasada in its place. This has been discussed in detail in the chapters Balaram and Daksha's daughters, which takes us to the ovaries through the cranial nerves of the parasympathetic system. Thus, Haridwar refers to the urinary tract since Krishna is the personification of the kidneys. River Ganga refers to the spinal cord, bottom half where the cranial nerve is connected. At Yagnasala, no one welcomed Dakshayini, and she was openly insulted by her father. As we all know, Daksha never liked Shiva. Daksha shouted at Dakshayini in front of all others, saying that Shiva begs for food, lives in a graveyard, covers his body with ash, and has no possessions, not even good clothes to cover himself. Dakshayini, unable to bear the humiliation, immolated herself in front of all the people who had gathered there. This is called sati, and Hindu religion, at a later stage, required a widowed wife to voluntarily jump into the funeral pyre of her dead husband. Please note that in this situation, Dakshayini did not self-immolate after Shiva died. Yet, this practice of sati was followed blindly by the Hindu followers. At times, widows were compelled to torch themselves against their wishes. Even now, certain sections of Hindu society glorify the practice of sati. This is a black mark on Indian society and on the whole human race. Shiva is known and called Rudra or Rutra. Some believe that Rudra is teardrop and some call it eye of Shiva. But it relates to cry. Brahma gave the name Rudra when the child cried. It is feminine. As I mentioned elsewhere in the book, Rudra means ovum, female egg. Dakshayini and Rudra are inseparable by nature since both are feminine. There are two ovaries in the female anatomy, and it looks like the eyes of a person can be Shiva also. The ovum expelled from any one of the eyes, ovary, may mean the tears of that eye, ovary. The ovum is expelled through the hormonal stimulation, which is the result of the pituitary gland equated to Shiva, the creator. The Rudraksha seed is very hard and can last for years and even generations. Rudraksha seeds can also be equated to lotus seeds in longevity. Rudraksha seeds, Heliocorpus fericus, Geratin, or Heliocorpus ganitris, are said to have medicinal properties and are useful for lowering blood pressure and stress reduction. Hibiscus rosa sinensis is known as Rudra Pushpa or Japa. The Rudraksha Mala is also known as Jabamala, where many understand that Jaba or Jabam means ritual worship or chanting. All religious bead malas are termed Jabamalas. Hibiscus is useful for many ailments in the genito-urinary tract. The ovum in the ovary is always in a single queue waiting to mature and be expelled every month. resembling a japamala. Aristolochia indica is known as Rudrajata, Ahiganda, Sunanda, Arkamula, and Ishwari. Parvati is incidentally also known as Ishwari. Considering the name of the plant, it may be useful for ailments relating to the female anatomy, but its present medical use is limited to serving as an antidote for snake bites and insect bites. Ahi in Ahiganda means snake. Images of a female egg and Rudraksha display similarities. Both are balls with rugged exteriors. Many believe that the Puranic stories paint a picture that Rudra is masculine, and Rudra, Shiva, and Dakshini are married. Menarche is the attainment of puberty, resulting in menstruum or flow. The flow consists of fresh and clotted blood with endometrial tissue, not yet the degenerated female egg and the uterus lining, as happens during normal menstruation. Normal menstruation will regularly start a while after puberty. Only when the normal menstrual cycle is established and fertilization is a possibility will a male sperm be invited. Shiva or masculine is not invited in a menarche situation since it has not reached the level of a man woman meeting. The menstruum upon menarche is understood as the self immolation of Dakshayini. Sati in Sanskrit is Yati, means to bind or to oblige. Menarche creates a bond between the ovaries and the uterus, but menarche does not allow a bond between male sperm and female egg. Since there is no union of male and female at the time of yagna, sati, bonding is considered dead, depicted through self-immolation. In short, the entire story of Daksha's yagna, the non-invitation of Shiva, and the death of Dakshayani, Sati, tries to convey what happens during menarche in a female body. This story does not talk about normal menstruation that is discussed under the story of Mahishasuravadham, death of Mahishasura. The dramatization of Daksha's yagna took a sad turn, and the self-immolation was misunderstood as a glorified act of sati. Dakshayani is said to have self-immolated because of the humiliation meted out to her husband Shiva. This is a misconception that validated the practice of sati that took many young and innocent lives in the past 5,000 years. Meanwhile, news of Dakshini's ill treatment reached Shiva, who summoned his attendant Veerabhadra and ordered him to destroy the yagna and all its participants. Veerabhadra destroyed everything. Bhadra means canal or duct in the human body. Vir or Veera means courage and in turn leads to blood fight in a war. There is no war without blood. Hormonal signals would have triggered and resulted in blood flow or menstruum at puberty. Finally, Shiva himself appeared on the scene and brought Dakshini back to life. On her request, Shiva brought all the dead participants back to life. On the advice of Brahma, Daksha went to Varanasi to do tapas for the grace of Shiva. Shiva appeared before Daksha and made him one of the leaders of his Bhuta. Bhu, birth, plus Ta, flow. Ganas. Ganesha is another leader of the Bhuta Ganas. Bhuta Ganas refers to human germ cells which are instrumental for birth. Bhu. After a bitter war, every dead person was brought back to life. The body returns to normal with some major physiological changes, which is called puberty. Bhuttaganas are the warriors of Shiva and in turn represent the reproductive organs. These reproductive organs work under instructions from the brain where Kailash, Shiva Parvati's residence is located, and they control the happenings of the world, human body. Parvati is also known as Uma. Uma is the Sanskrit name for linseed or flax plant. The botanical name is Linum usitatissimum. It was extensively cultivated in ancient Egypt and is now cultivated in India. Ancient Egypt was contemporary to the Indus Valley culture, the predecessor of the Vedic period. Flax seeds contains omega-3 fatty acids and lignans which are good for the heart. Omega-3 fatty acids reduce the risk of coronary heart disease, stimulate blood circulation, lower blood pressure, and reduce the risk of primary and secondary heart attacks. Lignans also benefits the heart and possesses anti-cancer properties, especially for breast cancer and prostate cancer. It also reduces or stabilizes blood sugar levels and reduces the impact of diabetes. Most of its benefits are in relation to blood, which is personified as Shiva, the husband of Uma. Does Shiva's lingam have anything to do with lignin of flax seeds? Lingam refers to an erect penis, and the erection is sustained through the flow of blood. There are many medicinal plants named after Nandi, the attendant of Shiva. One of them is known as Nandi, Ipumia tupathim. It is also known as Kalaparni, Trivirth, and Kalameshi, where Kala means Shiva, who is human blood. Tri means three, and it refers to trijunction, which is the uterus. Tri plus Vrit may mean the well-being of the uterus. This plant is widely used in Ayurveda and Siddha. Another plant is known as Nandyavarta, Valeriana vlichi. It is also known as Tagra. This plant is also used for treating menstrual cramps. Yet, another plant is known as Nandi Vriksha, Taberni montana coronaria. This plant is also known as Tagra, Tagar, and Nandiyavattambu. Mostly, this plant is medically used for the eyes. Incidentally, the ovum is referred to and known as Rudraksha or eyes. The ovaries, residents of Kubera, are the residences of Rakshasas, demons. One more plant is known as Nandireka, Ficus benjamina. This plant is also known as Kamruk, Nandruk, and Putrajivi. Kamruk is Kamarupa, referring to Cupid. Putrajivi refers to baby and life, basically to the uterus. One other plant is known as Kubereka, Cadria tuna. This plant is also known as tuna or tuna, Nandi Vriksha and Nandi Briksha. Kubera is the god of wealth, Ova, and his residence is in the ovaries. Its flowers are used in the treatment of menstrual disorders. Flower, Puvum, forehead mark, Pottum, turmeric, Manjal, and forehead paste, Kunkumam, Poo, flower, Pottu, mark on forehead, Manjal, turmeric, and Kunkum, red powder made from turmeric, are important items indispensable in the daily life of a Hindu. Hindu tradition and culture have taught them to use it in many ways to derive benefits, but most use them mainly out of religious sentiment. Poo simply means any flower for many. It refers to jasmine. Most married Hindu women prefer to wear jasmine in their braids. Pottu is a mark made on the forehead using sandalwood or turmeric paste or kumkum, red powder made of turmeric or saffron, and ash, white refined ash from burnt cow dung. Manjal or turmeric, Curcuma longa, is best known for its medicinal properties, is antiseptic, antibacterial, and widely used in Ayurvedic medicine. This item is an integral part of Hindu households. Modern medicine has identified the uses or properties of curcumin only in the later part of the 20th century, whereas Ayurveda has identified it before Hindu culture and Vedic culture. Kumkum is a powder made from turmeric. Turmeric is yellow in color, mixed with slake lime, calcium hydroxide, which gives it the red color. Any Hindu religious ceremony, however small, is incomplete without these items. Such is their importance. Hinduism prohibits a widow from using povum pottum, flower, and forehead mark. This practice is ridiculous because Hindus have not understood the tradition properly. A widow is a woman who has lost her husband, Kanavanai ilandavar in Tamil. Kanavan means husband, and ilandavar means one who lost. It is widely known in Tamil, Kanavanai ilandavarukku povum pottum illai. It is the rule all over India among Hindus. Kanavan, husband, can be identified as Ganavan, esteemed person. Ganavan can be modified as Ganavana, Gana plus Vana. Puranic stories identify Ganesha and Daksha as Ganapati, lord of Ganas, germ cells. Precisely, Ganesha is the lord of male Ganas, male germ cell, and Daksha is the lord of female ganas, female germ cell. Testis is equated to Ganesha, lord of male ganas. He is ultimately responsible for the production of sperm, which are important for procreation. Ovaries are equated to Daksha, lord of female ganas. Daksha is ultimately responsible for the production of ova, which are important for procreation. Thus, Ganavana, Gana, sex cell, plus Vana, forest or place, refers to the place where sex cells are produced. Ganavana, Gana plus Vana, place of sperm production, will not be lost for a male under normal conditions, and he can produce sperm till the end of his life. Only its motility is a concern. It is not a lifelong issue for a female. Normally, a female passes through menopause, a condition where the periodic release of the ovum stops. Thus, a menstrual cycle comes to an end. In other words, a female is said to have lost her Ganavana, Gana plus Vana, the capacity to produce mature germ cells, Ganavana, Ganavana, Kanavana, or husband. It is this situation that is known as Kanavani Ilandavar. A female can lose her husband but may not have yet attained the stage of menopause. Such a woman cannot be called a widow, according to Vedic texts. Let us understand the process of menstrual cycle. The cycle is governed by the interplay of hormones between certain parts of the brain on one side and the ovaries on the other. Certain parts of the brain, hypothalamus, stimulate the pituitary gland to release gonadotropic hormones which reach the ovaries through the bloodstream. The ovaries respond by producing steroid hormones, which circulate in the blood and act on the pituitary gland to inhibit its hormone production. This process is repeated each month in the female anatomy and is called a cycle. The pituitary gland is known as the third eye of Shiva, sex stimulant, which is designated to be on the forehead of a human. This is the place that every Hindu marks with sandalwood, turmeric paste, or kumkum, known as pottu. The ovum is referred to as a jasmine bud and is known as poo or flower. Puranic stories have mentioned the menstrual cycle in a very simple term, ovum pottum. Thus, a female who has reached the stage of menopause, Kanavana Ilandavar, person who has lost Gana plus Vana, does not need povum pottum. Yes, the cycle does not happen, or the interplay of hormones is not necessary. Puranic stories never mention anywhere that a female who lost her husband, literally, should not mark her forehead with kumkum or otherwise, and not adorn her hair with flowers. When a female achieves menopause, then, even if her husband is alive, she is considered to have lost her Kanavan, husband, Gana plus Vana. Among the marriage rituals, there is a ritual called Kanniga Danam. What does this mean? Here, the parents of the bride guarantee the virginity of their daughter to the bridegroom and his parents and gives the bridegroom permission to enter into family life. Today, this is interpreted in a different way. That is, the woman is given to them as gift or alms by the bride's family. For this reason, they are treated as slaves and suppressed. The rights of the woman and her parents are being taken away. Corner, Mulai. To trijunction, uterus, or street, Muchandi. மூளையிலிருந்து முச்சந்திக்கு, தெருவிற்கு, or மூளையிலிருந்து முச்சந்திக்கு, மூன்று சந்திப்புக்கு. Corner to trijunction or road, மூளை to முச்சண்டி, is a Tamil saying which can be heard frequently in day-to-day life. It is meant to focus on things which have come to public knowledge, which otherwise would have been swept under the carpet. The original saying must have been மூளை or முச்சண்டி, brain to trijunction or uterus, which has been changed over time to mean மூளை to முச்சண்டி, corner to trijunction or road. The original saying indicates the nexus between the brain and the uterus in female anatomy. The saying very simply and clearly quotes the functions of the menstrual cycle and the relationship of the brain, pituitary gland, with the uterus. Whatever happens at the uterus becomes a public knowledge, known to the concerned female or her associates, be it menstruation or pregnancy. The happenings at the uterus are in fact activated by the brain and endocrine system. But this is not known or visible to anyone except to the medium called uterus, the trijunction.